Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, I had a little bit of problem with my connection. Can you hear me okay now?
Yep, absolutely fine.
Perfect. Phew.
How are you?
Very good, very good. How are you?
Great. Yeah, we had our first kind of few drops of rain yesterday. So,
Ooh.
yeah, the winter is coming, which means the weather will be slightly more normal than usual.
Does it get cold there in the winter?
Not where I live. I live in Tel Aviv, which is on the sea. So I think the lowest we have is like 7 at night or something like that. So there's no never snow or any kind of
Okay,
truly cold
nice.
temperatures. Yeah. But it's not 40 degrees so Celsius. So that's like where I compare to, right? So it's fine as long as it's in like between 20 and 30. It's decent.
That's nice. Sounds good. I
Yep.
think it gets pretty cold and miserable over here in the UK.
Yeah, yeah, I know you are famous for your rains and fog and all of this. Yeah, uh, and also many other things. But yeah, so so this week we are going to have kind of more relaxed space than last week. We had trivia and it was fun. The time flies very quickly and weirdly. Like every day is long, but then all of the days together are very short. And today we're going to talk about a few things. First of all, we're going to discuss the recent event of the previous week, the crazy hack of Binance Smart Chain amongst them. And we're also going to talk about Beam and what's happening with Beam. And we're also going to talk a little bit about Source and what's happening with Source. And also, we're going to talk about Web3 and privacy, and we have quite a lot of things to talk about. So I know Russell also wanted to join, so he probably will. And maybe a few other people will also join in. So let's get started.
Absolutely. Realized I was on mute. Yeah, there's a lot to cover and some pretty interesting events in the last week and also a lot to cover on the Beam side and of course privacy.
Yeah, so let's start with the hack because it's a very interesting story. Uh, it was late night Thursday here when it broke, and I was playing poker with my friends. And suddenly I saw these kind of notifications from Twitter and elsewhere, like biggest hack in the history of whatever, like I don't know, something like 1 or 2 million, which is like 560 million US dollars. And it was an interesting story for a few reasons. First of all, the hack itself was very technical. It was very sophisticated, I would say. Basically, the attacker found a way to forge a proof. It's like when I saw this, the analysis that I saw did not kind of detail the exact way that the attacker was using, but they did find a bug that could have been exploited in the same way. So there was a bug. And as a result, there was a transfer of a massive amount of coins from BNB to Binance Smart Chain. And then the second interesting thing happened because this story kind of disappeared. So it was like BSC chain is stopped. Will there be a rollback? Like what's happening? And then suddenly, poof, and I heard like no more news about this story.
It's been very strange in this regard, right? Like the hack and the pause of the blockchain, which is interesting in and of itself. There was very little like a follow-up discussion or articles or anything like this. Almost like everyone collectively went silent.
Yeah, it's very strange. If any one of our listeners knows anything about the continuation of this story, I see someone here called Binary with the Binance logo or something similar in the avatar. or anyone else, like, please let us know or point us to some materials because, uh, you know, I am very curious how this was resolved, if it was resolved. Um, so yeah, and the second story that I want to mention was the story of I think it was Celsius that accidentally leaked all of their user identities and accounts. So
Yeah,
it wasn't them who leaked it. I think it was either the lawyers or some legal entity that leaked the documents because these documents were disclosed as a part of their bankruptcy case, right?
yeah. The documents were disclosed, and it had everyone's names and like the deposit and withdrawal and also the time. So I think like it was very easy to kind of link the transactions from their like internal ledger with the ones on Ethereum and connect the or on any of the transparent ledgers, link the transaction and the wallet address to the names that were on the sheet as well. So it didn't just like dox everyone that was a user, it also kind of connect a wallet or wallets that they were using with their real name.
I think this is very sad and unbelievable, and I think this story also like doesn't get enough attention because I think it's a major problem. Um, Obviously, because after all, this is a financial institution. Like it's not exactly Web3. It's more like Web2 or centralized custodial. Like these things should not happen. Definitely not in such a negligent way. Yeah, like it's a sad story. I just I want to mention some interesting, not related story that shows you how much this information. So this is specifically financial information, very kind of straightforward. But even if you're talking about kind of less, you know, services that are less, you would suspect to leak so much information. All of these services that you order food from, right?
Yeah.
So I follow this group that investigates corruption in Russian government circles. And what they do is they find people in the government that should disclose according to the law all of their salaries, and then they find yachts and airplanes and jets and all kinds of very large houses all over the world, which could not have possibly bought with that salary, and they show that this is probably the result of corruption, and that's what they do. That's this kind of their thing.
Yeah.
And at some point, when Russian government tried to fight this, they have closed all of the records. So there is this kind of central database in Russia of all of the properties. So they closed parts of this database, and they just removed the names of the owners, and instead they put something like Russian Federation, like something like that. And it became more difficult for them. And at some point, there was a major leak in one of the big services in Russia that order food by the address. So they found the people and the relatives of the people, and by the addresses to which they were ordering food, they found shit of properties.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So these things are kind of crazy, sensitive. Like even if you don't think like who cares, like it's a food service, like what? But yes, all of this information combined together can be very powerful. There is an entire kind of I would say kind of type of journalism like which relies on open source and like publicly available information. And they combine information from different publicly available open sources, and then they do a lot of very interesting discoveries. And right now in the war that's going on in Ukraine, they rely a lot on different types of information being sent from different places. They combine it, they kind of data mine it, and they get a lot of interesting things from there. So yeah, it's a very important topic, and we will touch on that. When we'll talk about Web3, which will be in a minute. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about Beam. So this week, like I hope it will be probably, but maybe also on Tuesday, the 7.2 will be released to mainnet. which will include the asset swap that we have already demonstrated and tested together. And immediately after that, we will go to testing and releasing the bridges because we have a kind of a bottleneck in QA. We want to test everything properly, so we didn't want to release both of these at the same time. So that's what's going to happen. And this leaves us with the DEX, which is also being built. I hope to be released by end of this month. Once again, very similar to Uniswap V2, very straightforward, liquidity pools, LP tokens, all of that. No kind of complications there. So I hope by the end of this month, we will be able not only to swap our assets on the asset swap, but also trade it on the DEX.
That's awesome. And how do you see like the two, or how do you see like the use case of the asset swap and the use case of the DEX being both similar and different?
Yeah, so I think the asset swap will be used for larger deals, like OTC deals, where you want to kind of market swap a large amount of assets of different types without, majorly impacting the price. And the DEX will be just like all chains, more of a kind of decentralized marketplace for smaller amounts, and obviously kind of more liquidity and more frequent deals and more frequent upgrades. So that's kind of the difference between the two.
That makes sense, and I think that and totally agree, by the way, with like the difference in use cases and this kind of stuff. And I think like there was a lot of push for an AMM style DEX from the community. And I think that it's super useful and important that both of them are going to be there in the wallet, asset swaps in the wallet, the DEX as a dApp also in the wallet. I think this is going to be awesome.
Absolutely. So I just want to say, a lot of, good words about the team. They've been working very hard all the time, but, especially recently, there have been a lot of activity, a lot of releases, a lot of different things that we develop. And one of the things that we are also going to probably talk about in the coming weeks more, we want to make this next step in more decentralized governance and R&D activities in Beam. So it's an ongoing process, transferring from the foundation to the DAO. It's been a slow process. We have been releasing like the applications, the voting, all of that stuff was being kind of prepared, but rarely used. But it's important that we have it now, and we want to make the next step of kind of managing the development activities in a more bounty-oriented fashion, I would say, more kind of, feature-specific discussions, and we will set it up using our forum, using these spaces, or maybe in other ones, so they want to contribute their ideas of what we should develop first or next, or prioritize things, add suggestions and things like that. So we will, in the coming couple of weeks, make this process more transparent, more open, and eventually it will be the process of how Beam R&D is going to move forward.
That's wicked, and like as has been discussed in the past, I think that this is a really important evolution for Beam, and also opens it up to outside developers getting involved, and further aligns with the further decentralization from the foundation to the DAO and this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So one more kind of important Source. So Source, as you know, is a project which creates decentralized development environment, very active and kind of, completely like truly Web3 application with all of the necessary features, decentralization, privacy, and in my opinion, a great project. It's been moving forward. If you didn't recently revisit the site, the application, please do so. And tomorrow, as you know, there is tomorrow. Taking into account the time difference, at some point tomorrow there will be DevCon starting in Bogota, Colombia.
Yeah.
Which is a major Ethereum conference, and Yaron from Source will be there.
Nice.
And if you are in the area, go and meet him and just follow the updates. There's been a lot of kind of reworking and updating of the user engagement flows. We now connect to GitHub. We collect all kinds of statistics. We create this beginning of on-chain reputation that we've been talking about. So yeah, a lot of new things are happening. Source guys are also working very hard. So yeah, check it out.
Great stuff. And Yaron will be speaking at the Bogota event or the...
No, I don't think he has a speaker slot because after all, it's more of an Ethereum kind of focus from conference.
Yeah, makes sense.
But he will be there. He will be meeting with developers because in Source, like they believe that kind of early adopters of this platform are likely to be Web3 developers. People started working in Web3 already because it's easier for them to understand the concept of the wallet and the address and the keys and decentralization. All of these things are more natural to them. So it's kind of makes a lot of sense to start promoting Source to these new developers that joined Web3 either recently or like a long time ago. They understand the meaning and the importance of what we're trying to do there. And that's his goal is to onboard new developers to kind of present and spread the idea and the concept of Source in the Ethereum community, because as you know, Source is currently running on Beam, but it is a multi-chain platform. So it can run on any blockchain, obviously including EVM-based, such as Ethereum or Polygon and others. And maybe even Binance Smart Chain if it's not stopped, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. Like the Bogota event, DevCon, is like where I was talking with someone the other day, and they were saying like Bogota and DevCon is where all of the developers on Ethereum have gone, and the one that was like also recently Token 2049, maybe, I don't know if it was 2049, something like that, in Singapore. They were saying that like all of the money guys are in the Singapore event and all of the developers and builders are at DevCon.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the next event, I think there will be also something in Lisbon, right? Is Lisbon or something like that? There's another one coming.
I don't know, but Lisbon is a very beautiful city. So if it is, I suggest that whoever's questioning going, they bite the bullet and definitely head there. There's a question in the chat regarding Source from Unseen Shadow King.
Yeah.
And it's will there later be a DApp for Source 3, or would this be inefficient?
I understand. So yeah, in terms of how the application works, it's completely like when we're running on Beam, when Source is running on Beam, it's completely based on on Beam Wallet. It is basically a DApp. The only question is how we wrap it, and we can definitely in Beam Wallet, like no question there. It can be very easily integrated in the wallet. Right now, it is running more of like a web interface, so web-based app, and you can connect to it using a dedicated client. The reason we developed the dedicated client for Source is because we also need to connect to your existing Git infrastructure. So we need to do more things than Beam Wallet does today. And once you have installed that, you have this kind of, if you're ever used like GitHub Desktop or similar Git clients, it's very similar to that, only obviously Web3 decentralized and all that. So it is possible. I'm not sure it makes a lot of sense at the moment, but yeah, it's definitely an option.
And so what you mentioned, like for Source to be accessed now, it's using the web wallet, is that right?
Yes. So
okay, cool.
there are two ways to work with Source. The first way is to open the DApp in your browser, and then use it's called Source Web Client. It's basically the same wallet, the same web wallet, only rewrapped with kind of more appropriate functions, right? You don't need to send many types of assets. You need slightly different functions from Beam Web Wallet. So the Beam Web Wallet infrastructure was adapted to Source Web Client. But most of people who use Source for actually creating repositories, committing changes and all that, they still need to install the desktop client, and that's where mostly these people all do the updates. Like usually it's developers, like more like heavy and sophisticated users, they install the desktop client and use it for all of the activities. So yeah, that's the two options.
Nice. And I think like for, especially if you're getting developers like from the Ethereum ecosystem and the various crypto ecosystems, I would say at least that it's a lot easier than to install like a browser extension to use the source stat from a web base than it would be to get like a wallet download as an application on their computer.
Yeah,
And
so
at least this would be my guess.
no, that's absolutely right. But also, when we're talking about running a source on top of Ethereum, you don't actually need to install anything. It uses MetaMask.
Nice.
Yeah, out of the box, it's very kind of simple onboarding. Obviously, for any creative operation like creating new repositories and actually uploading data, you still need the desktop client in some way. But for all of the web interface, you don't need anything but MetaMask, which is very convenient.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions?
From me? No. But
No, like from the community. I just don't follow all the chats.
If you're in the space and you have a question, yell out and I will bring you on the stage. If you're in the Telegram and have a question, just fire it through there and I can ask it for you if you like.
Okay, so let's talk about Web3 and privacy. When you Google Web3 and privacy, you see a lot of very different things. And the reason for that is like I just try to research this topic to see like what people are talking about before the space, as I usually do. And one of the problems is with the word privacy. Obviously, there is also a problem with the word Web3, but now like kind of there is more consensus about what Web3 means. We kind of understand that it means like blockchain and decentralization, tokenomics, all of those things. But the privacy concept is so wide. And I think the best example is that when you enter a new website, it usually shows you this annoying floating box at the bottom, which says, "We value your privacy, accept all cookies." You know this?
Yeah.
And the reason they do that is because in this case, the privacy is about privacy of being tracked, right? Like we are not tracking you, or we're not, sending your information to third parties like Google or Facebook or whomever.
Yep.
Obviously, you can't know what they're doing, but at least you know. Now most websites give you two options, like all cookies or like essential only. So I don't know what is essential for them, but at least there are two options now. This is a great example of privacy, as for example, there are projects out there that are trying to reinvent edtech in Web3 world, make it permission-based. So I don't know, you receive some kind of reward when you see ads or something. There are a lot of ideas floating out there. And for them, privacy is about cookies. In other areas, the privacy is treated as in kind of anonymity. And we know that approach, right? We also obviously in Beam, like for so many years, like this idea that privacy is just anonymity. It was very popular back in the day. It's less popular now. People start to understand that it's not the same thing. But in Web3 world, which is not just about DeFi or crypto, very often because people say, "Oh, listen, now that you have your addresses and your like private keys, and you don't like put your identity everywhere or something like that, you're more anonymous." And we know that it's complete bullshit because everything is so easily traceable.
Especially like if you have only like a few data points on a person, it's very easy like to see who that person is and who they're interacting with and these kind of things.
Absolutely.
similar to what was mentioned earlier about like the database for deliveries and the addresses that they were using from Uber Eats gave some insights into to the properties owned and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So combining actually quite a small amount of data points, like we would be surprised, can identify a person very precisely and track this data across multiple domains. So it's like kind of a this strange, I would say, gap or vacuum, because every once in a while we hear people from Ethereum community saying like, "Oh, if only we had private transactions. Oh, we need privacy." Like every once in a while, somebody comes and says something like that. There is a tweet here, and an article there. But then it kind of disappears into the vacuum. There is no kind of action points from that. There are no steps taken.
Yeah, it's a erroneous kind of tweet every now and then. Privacy or the lack thereof has been put in the spotlight by certain things, such as the Celsius kind of documents being leaked and this kind of stuff. And then it kind of moves on and keeps using the same like privacy poor products and this kind of stuff.
So the reason for that, and this is like my personal opinion, is that the Ethereum community is waiting for one of two things to happen. Either there will be some zero knowledge breakthrough, like for example, ZK EVM or something that will take care of that for them, or there will be some, I don't know, roll-ups or some other mechanism that will take care of it. Like they're just waiting for the project to come and take care of it. They don't really, want to do anything. They just sit there and wait for something good to happen, and suddenly, the privacy will appear on the Ethereum blockchain.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little bit like, back in the day, waiting for Elon Musk to invent electric cars and not building any cars at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Because
sitting back and waiting for someone else to solve the problem.
yeah, like okay, it's okay. We will walk, we will run, we will jog. I don't know, and we will not build cars until Elon Musk comes and invents the Tesla. So it's nonsense. And obviously, for projects like Beam, who do provide privacy, and okay, now we will have also bridges, and we're trying to move across these, like kind of being just an island of privacy somewhere, being more to the ecosystem. But still, like there are a lot of interesting things, directions, questions that can be raised, and it's just not done. And the part of the problem, in my opinion, is that first of all, Ethereum is just after this merge, and like nobody has any power anymore, any like patience for anything. It was very exhausting and long process of this merge. And also, for the DeFi world, there is kind of consensus that says, yeah, all these people, they're kind of, traders and arbitrageurs, and they're basically there to make money, easy money. Nobody cares about privacy. It's fine. Like they don't really need it. It's okay now. Okay, so we reach this balance of people who use DeFi. They don't really care about the privacy. And when we move to Web3, these questions arise again. And the reason for that is that in Web3, it's not only about trading, it's not about DeFi, it's not about some token that suddenly rises or falls or whatever. It's about life. And in life, we do have some expectations of, I call it for privacy, right? It's not a real privacy, but we expect, like, for example, let's talk about LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is a global network for resumes and looking for people for different jobs, professions, and all that, professional network. We use it every day to find people, to find jobs, whatever. We publish some information about ourselves there. We assume that this information is private in the sense that it's not kind of spread just randomly everywhere. We don't really know what is being done with that information. We don't really care. It works for us. But when we move to the Web3 world, suddenly all of that information, whether the one that we marked as private in the Web2 world or the one that we didn't, like it was public in the Web2 world, but all of it is suddenly public. And let me give you a quick example. Let's say you start looking for while working in the previous company, right? This is one of the most, I don't know, important things that nobody in your company knows that you're looking for work, right? It's kind of people are trying to hide that fact usually, and this is why LinkedIn there are a lot of checkboxes of who can see your updates, who can see your job applications, who can see this and who can see that. And it's important. You cannot do it with you can't you're not ready to just expose all this information. And the same goes when you're looking for an apartment. You don't want everyone in the world to see like which apartments you're searching, where you're bidding, like what you're doing in general. When you move to the current implementation of Web3 on current blockchains, all of this is gone. You immediately become completely exposed. And obviously, this information is very important for not just you, but also people who are hunting you to provide you advertising. And, a lot of people can benefit from this information, even, outside of the fact that it was supposed to be hidden in the Web 2. So this is kind of a big, my opinion. And when real projects get to this realization and understanding that it's not going to be possible for them to just take the existing model from LinkedIn or any other project. I say LinkedIn because there are projects today who are doing this kind of transition, right? Whether it's job seeking or professional communities to Web3. But you cannot really apply that to a public blockchain today because it has no privacy. On the other hand, the blockchains that do have privacy, they have other problems. Like for example, Beam is too small. Monero, Zcash do not have smart contracts. I don't know. Secret have smart contracts, but like not exactly sure which part is private. Everybody has like some issues. There is no go-to solution. There was one. It was called Tornado Cash. But it's not here anymore. No, I'm kidding. But the Tornado Cash, by the way, it was a solution that worked, right? You think you want about good, bad, or whatever, but it worked and people used it. People used it for legitimate purposes, definitely for illegitimate ones. It doesn't matter, but it works. And right now in the Web3 world, there is no good solution for privacy which works. So we're trying to get there. We're working really hard to get to this point. Source is a great example in one domain, but and we constantly encounter various projects that we talk to, and they say, "Oh yeah, here I would love to have privacy." But the problem is that they all raise money and they need to provide some kind of working prototype. So what they're doing is they're simplifying these solutions, and they just ignore privacy for now. Like the first version will be completely transparent. Then later, maybe we will think about privacy because, we need to do something now in Web3, and there is no good solution for privacy anyway.
Yeah. And this is a real kind of a bad attitude to take, in my opinion. Like there should be more support for people that are like people and projects and protocols that are looking to add privacy wherever it is, because at least in my opinion, it's essential for like everyday things, from finances to, as you mentioned earlier, looking for jobs, looking for apartments, this kind of stuff. And one of the terms that's often used about like the Web3 kind of private isn't necessarily like buying coins and doing finance stuff, is like your social graph, and how in Web 2 you don't own your social graph and you don't have privacy over it. And I really like this term of social graph. I think it gives like a really, in terms of like understanding, if you hear social graph, even if you've never heard it before, it's really easy to understand and very easy to go from that to understanding why you need privacy in this space as well.
Yeah, so the social graph is a concept that is also I heard like being addressed by a few projects. Um, and so, for example, back in the day when Facebook was popular, there was this strange paradox. Do you remember Google circles?
Oh, I vaguely remember it, and I also see like I don't use Facebook. I when I lived in China, I had Facebook, but I don't use it. When I lived in China, blocked and along with lots of other stuff. So for 5 years, until about until I was just leaving, I didn't get a VPN or didn't access things. So I probably missed the Facebook circle thing, but I do see
No,
like
no,
a similar thing
it's
on.
not Facebook circles. It was an attempt
Ah,
by Google.
oh, sorry. Okay, okay.
Yeah, it was an attempt by Google to compete with Facebook.
Yeah,
And what they did, they created a new social network. And the concept of that network was that, listen, in Facebook, you have like all your friends in one bucket. But in reality, they said, and there was a 168 pages like PDF with all of these kind of ideas. Um, in reality, they said you have different groups of friends. Like, for example, you have your, I don't know, students that you teach, I don't know, judo, and also you have, I don't know, guys that you go to crazy wild parties in the desert with, right? And you
yeah,
don't really want students to see the updates from those guys because, inappropriate.
yeah,
And then they decided to create this idea of circles that you need to define your circles, and these are the circle of the crazy guys, and this is the circle of the students, and these circles do not, collide in any way. There is no interaction with that. So this was the idea. It failed miserably. It failed like nobody even remembers that it existed. Um,
yeah,
and the reason it failed is because people did not have enough like patience or capacity or will or whatever to start organizing their friends into categories. It's not this straightforward. So it was very difficult and complicated. And eventually the Facebook model, like back in the day, it won because it was like, nobody cares. Just put them all in one basket and follow that and that's it. So this is kind of what's happening with privacy, because from one point there is like, you know, it's important. But then what's happening is that people don't really have, in the current situation where the privacy is usually implemented either as a feature or not implemented at all, like it's it's more difficult, obviously, to use. So most of the projects, they think about that circles example, and they say, oh, let's not overcomplicate it. Let's just put everything, in one place. But the problem or the major difference is that, first of all, blockchain is also, first of all, immutable, as you know. It's kind of add-only ledger. And all of this information, like once it gets there on the blockchain, that's it. It's forever. It's forever just because it's in the internet. But at least there you could have said, oh, it should have been only local to some specific company. In this case, it's completely global. So let's say, what was the name of the is it Talent Protocol? I don't remember. I looked at one. You know Talent Protocol?
I don't, not off the top of my head.
So if you take a look, there are several examples of these projects that are doing professional communities. So the Talent Protocol is one of them, the Web3 professional community for high potential builders. And when you sign up, I think, like you connect all kinds of sources, not necessarily all of them. Obviously, connect your email. Now, like what helps us is that is the fact that most of these are also kind of Web2/Web3 combination. So
Yeah,
then they don't put everything on chain, and that's why you can kind of avoid exposing all the information directly. But if they would have, that would have been the problem. because once you disclose something, like immediately it's connected to other information and it's on chain and it's transparent. So this is something that you need privacy built in from the very beginning and by design, and not as an afterthought or like a, feature that can be added later, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this relates to a comment from Unseen Shadow King in the chat. He mentions that the problem with the safe data is even bigger when it comes to public blockchains, and of course this is because the data is the forever kind of thing. For as long as someone has a copy of the ledger, links can be made and this kind of stuff, and so something you did last year or 5 years could come back to hurt you and like hurt your privacy and this kind of stuff, because at the time and moving forward you kind of blase about looking at your privacy, and it doesn't go away like the with public blockchains. The data is always going to be there, which is even worse than like a database that someone can wipe, I guess.
That's absolutely true, and it's true also for the internet in general. And I heard a great joke a couple of days ago. Next time you make a sex video, put some Disney music in the background, because then if it ever gets leaked online, Disney lawyers will take care of it.
Yeah, this is a very good point. I will remember this for all future sex tapes that I partake
in. Yeah. So definitely, right? So one of the reasons that in Beam it's so convenient in this regard, because whatever you are doing, you are building on top of a privacy blockchain. You don't think about it; it's just there for you. You can build any application in Beam today, like really any application that you could build on Ethereum or any other blockchain. There are no limitations of integrations or like types of transactions, type of logic that you can implement. I have a lot of additional kind of benefits, and the only major obstacle right now is that you need to learn kind of a new way to write smart contracts, which we will also overcome with the addition of the EVM in the upcoming next hard fork. So once you implement this on Beam, you don't think about it. You just have your privacy, and then from there you can do whatever you want, but at least your base layer is covered. And I think this is, I hope this is going to be a great selling point, specifically for Web3, because DeFi obviously can benefit from privacy a lot as well, and probably will. But in Web3, it's even more like this need for not just putting everything out there in kind of completely linkable way and forever, becomes even more transparent and obvious.
Yeah, I think it's far easier, especially with like a lot of what we see happening with Facebook and Google and the attention to like data and these kind of things. I think it's far easier to understand and far more for anyone that's coming from Web 2 to Web 3 to have that kind of focus or desire for privacy within their socials and all Web3 things than it is for, say, finances and this kind of stuff.
So which is a great kind of opportunity to also talk about the problems, like problems that cannot be easily solved with Web3 kind of ideas in general and privacy in particular. This kind of idea of the right to be forgotten.
Yeah.
And the idea is that, let's say sometime in college, you went crazy, you did something, and this something was caught on video, and this video was uploaded to the internet, right? So how long will it take, for you to get rid of this? Like in terms of for how long will it haunt you? And the answer is almost forever, because at some point, even if you become, I don't know, the president of something, somebody can find this video and say, "Oh, did you see that our president was once, a juvenile idiot?" The idea of this right to be forgotten is that the services are required to remove information about you when asked. And it's obviously just like many other regulations almost impossible to implement in reality
Yeah.
because there are always backups and there are always, copies and leaks and ton of shit. So it's not like really working, but at least it removes the responsibility from that organization, right? So something like that. Now in blockchain, it's not just difficult; it's plain not going to happen. Um, so what will happen to that? If I upload now an image, right, to a blockchain, and I can do it today in many blockchains, right? In almost any blockchain, I can upload some data that will, eventually stay there forever. What can be done about it? It's a big question, an
Yeah.
important one. No easy answers.
Yeah. And I guess like especially with some of the cultural kind of I don't know how to call it, a cultural shift towards like people being cancelled and this kind of stuff, which has kind of made its way into crypto and Web3, which was largely kind of void of before maybe a year ago or something like this. And yeah, I mean, sure, you need to be responsible for your decisions and actions in the past, but I think if if it's not like being someone, then you kind of need to give people a little bit of grace in terms of being young and juvenile and a bit stupid and honestly just having like a lack of understanding about how things are. Uh,
Yeah. So in my opinion, if you start with the privacy layer, the amount of things that will need to be forgotten about you can be reduced
yeah,
somewhat.
exactly.
And I think a great example of that is the reason why Vitalik Buterin said that he used Tornado Cash is to donate to Ukraine, and like he wanted to donate to Ukraine on one hand, and on the other hand, he didn't want to, I don't know, face the situation where next time he was visiting, I don't know, Russia for some reason, he would be stopped and asked, "Oh, hello, like we saw that you once contributed to Ukraine, let's arrest you or something," right? Which is like something that can
Yeah,
easily happen.
exactly.
Yeah, so once you have these kind of more control about your identity, about the information you disclose, to whom you disclose it, your confidentiality, and this removes all of these, or not completely, but reduces the amount of situations where this information can like easily leak out, even if it is on the public blockchain, but it is encrypted and it is kind of more controlled in terms of who sees what, right? And yeah, obviously you can lose your keys, somebody can steal your wallet. These things can happen, but still, it's much more, in my opinion, like clear what's going on instead of just let's put it out, let's see who. You can't even see who reads this information and who does.
Yeah, exactly. And like this comes back to something that I always think about with privacy. Like if you want everyone to see it, you can obviously do so, but that shouldn't be the default that everyone can see everything you're doing and this kind of stuff. If you want to show, for example, that you made a trade or that you own an NFT, you should be able to prove that cryptographically. Uh,
Yep.
but it shouldn't be sitting there for years for someone in 5 years to come out and say, hey, look, here's this wallet's owned by blah, blah, blah. And they purchased this NFT or they did this trade or whatever.
Yeah, so that's why we can, use once again zero knowledge to create proofs about ownership, about transactions, about things. And these proofs, once again, they can be made or created in a way that they're not necessarily public. So, for example,
Yeah,
in Beam, when you create a proof of transaction, it's public. You can show it to anyone and anyone can validate, but that doesn't necessarily has to be the case always, because you can always create a proof for a specific person or a specific wallet or specific entity, and then this proof will not be valid, for anyone else. So it's kind of more, it's more difficult because you have to, think and you have to manage all of these things, obviously. Um, people are trying to do that with regular Ethereum wallets. They're creating several addresses for different types of transactions, and it kind of works. But obviously, well, one small mistake or even one misstep, and that's it. It's linked forever. In this case, Beam is much better. But I think eventually that's where we're going. And also, it's important to understand that it's exactly what um, it's something that doesn't necessarily coincide with the ideas of the government about how these things should work. I saw today some weird piece of news about PayPal adding to their terms of service that they can fine you $2,500 for not telling the truth about something. See
It
that?
wasn't even, it wasn't, yeah, I saw this. It wasn't even not telling the truth. It was just like sharing an opinion that the company, I guess, doesn't agree with. Like
What?
dissenting opinions. Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. And I mean, this is what scares me at least. And I'm sure it's about like the CBDCs, which
Right.
I always question myself if that's the right letters. Uh, but this is always what kind of like scares the shit out of me, to be honest, about CBDCs and this whole like idea of social scoring. And I mean, it's not hard to imagine because we have like a credit score. At least like in the countries that I've lived with, there's often like a credit score, and it decides whether you can get a mortgage, whether you can get a credit card, and this kind of stuff. Uh, and it's very easy to kind of imagine a credit score being implemented in a fashion that's more in line or more to do with like your social activities and what you do, uh, posting dissenting kind of anti anti like I mean from what I heard about the PayPal stuff, it wasn't even anti like government stuff, it wasn't anti this, it wasn't anti that, it was like anything that is kind of against the company's like viewpoints. If you offer differing one, they can take your money essentially.
No, I definitely need to read about this deeper because it's so strange sounding. Um, but yeah, like this is exactly this kind of flip side of all of this innovation that we're doing. The flip side is that you can very easily abuse it, just like anything else.
Yeah,
Because if you remember back in the day, when Google was just a new kid on the block, there was all of this "do no evil" thing, and it was so cool, it was so nice, and then it rolled down the hill back to the same shit like where we find it today.
yeah,
And that's why we kind of want to have more decentralization, more control, and stuff like that. But it can very easily roll back and flip again. So yeah, it's very important to always try to maintain this understanding of how you treat that ethically. Um, Interesting example. After the Ethereum merge recently,
mm,
uh, all of these kind of new economics of block builders, and we're completely off topic and the time is running out, but it's fine. I just want to finish this idea. How the blocks are built in Ethereum proof of stake with all of these kind of MEV searchers creating bundles and then paying shitload of money to validators to push their blocks through. It's somehow, I don't know, it somehow feels worse than the proof of work. I don't know how to explain that. In proof
yeah,
of work, you also had pools and you also had MEV, you had all that, but it's maybe because I just dove deeper into what's happening there. But uh, I will explain like my point here. When you have proof of work, after all, there is some probability that you will close the block, right? So, for example, if you control 30% of the hash power, so there is like 1/3 probability. In proof of stake, there is a certainty. You are the validator of the slot. That's it. That's you. And now all of these builders come together and try to push your blocks to you and like pay you money and this all of this shady dealing going on. Oh my God. So yeah, it feels much worse than proof of work. I have to say that. I don't know how we got to this topic, but it's fine. That's the
well,
nature of the beast.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I wanna thank Greek Guardian X. Shout out for the message in Telegram. They did say they said that PayPal immediately did the policy of stealing customers' money, and claimed it was a mistake.
Yeah, well, at least something good came out of all this publicity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so it's been very nice as usual. Next week we're going to talk about. I think we will have more updates about the progress, both on the releases this week and the upcoming decks. Maybe I hope we will show something working.
Nice.
Yeah, and thank you very much for all of you for being here. It's been great as usual.
One of I have a
Sure.
last question for you, Alex. A few messages in the Telegram chat were talking about getting someone on or having a space that's discussing Nefrit and how it works and what it's about and these kind of things. Do you think it would be possible for us, maybe not next week, but maybe the week after or one of the weeks in the future, to have a space that specifically talks about Nephrite? And actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, maybe we can even have similar to the swap party, something similar to that, but to do with Nefrit on the DAppNet. I think this would be very cool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Why not? It's definitely a more complicated application than anything almost that we had before.
Yeah,
It's uh, like for those who are acquainted with liquidity, like it's loosely based on the same idea, but um, it has some additions that are different, not very simple to understand at the first glance, and nobody reads the documentation anymore, um, even when it exists.
yeah,
Yeah, so we definitely can do a walkthrough and a party and play with DAppNet, which is always a good idea. Absolutely.
absolutely.
Good
Well,
shout.
yeah,
Thank you.
the like you're mentioning, I mean, I as someone that never reads documentation, I find all of this stuff very interesting. And although like I have kind of a surface level understanding from playing with Maker launched and Liquidy more recently, I have like a surface level understanding. But if anyone asks a question that's somewhat beyond like the basic questions, I get very confused and realize that I don't know that much about what I'm even doing, which
Oh,
is not the only instance.
yeah, like absolutely. Even for somebody who does kind of even a deeper dive, all the differences are subtle and important. So yeah, we
Yeah,
definitely should do a walkthrough and try to understand together what is what and how to use it.
yeah, absolutely, would be fun.
Oh, so great. Thanks for everyone for being here, and we will see you next week.
Absolutely, thank you all, and see you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.